Can I say something that's going to make some people uncomfortable?
At this point, that's just how we open every episode.
I think Gen Z is genuinely suffering in a way that older generations don't fully understand. And I don't mean that as a complaint. I mean it as a diagnosis. Something actually went wrong, something measurable and real. And the response they mostly get is, "You're too sensitive, you had it easy, previous generations had real problems."
Which is maybe the least helpful thing you can say to someone who is already drowning.
Because dismissing the pain doesn't make the pain smaller, it just makes the person feel more alone in it.
And Gen Z is already one of the loneliest generations on record, which is deeply ironic given that they're the most connected generation in history.
Most connected, most anxious, most depressed, loneliest, all at the same time. And I think those things aren't separate facts. I think they're all part of the same story.
Then let's tell it.
So let's start with the numbers, because I think when people hear most anxious generation, they assume it's hyperbole. It's not. Rates of anxiety disorders, depression, self-harm, and suicidal ideation among people born roughly between 1997 and 2012 have been climbing steeply, particularly from around 2012 onward.
Which is not a coincidence.
Not even slightly a coincidence, because 2012 is roughly when smartphone ownership became nearly universal among teenagers, when social media stopped being something you checked on a computer and became something that lived in your pocket, something you woke up to and fell asleep with, something that was always on.
And I want to be careful here because I don't think it's as simple as phone's bad, social media toxic, everything was fine before. That's too clean.
It's too clean, but the correlation is real and it's hard to ignore. The same period that saw an entire generation grow up with a device in their hand also saw a dramatic increase in mental health struggles across that generation, and researchers have spent years trying to understand why.
And what they found isn't just about the content, it's about the structure.
The architecture of the thing, the way it's built. Because social media wasn't designed to make you feel good. It was designed to keep you engaged, and those are not the same thing. Engagement is maximized by outrage, by comparison, by the fear of missing out, by the dopamine hit of validation that never quite satisfies.
So you're handed a device at 13 that is specifically optimized to make you feel inadequate, and then you wonder why an entire generation is anxious?
And 13 is the key word, because the teenage brain is at its most vulnerable to social comparison, to the need for belonging, to the terror of rejection. And now all of that plays out not just at school, but on a platform visible to everyone, constantly, with a number attached to how much people liked what you showed them.
You can be rejected with metrics now.
Quantified, ranked, and archived.
But I think the social media piece is only part of the story. Because Gen Z didn't just grow up online, they grew up watching the world feel genuinely unstable in a way that previous generations at the same age didn't experience quite so directly.
What do you mean?
I mean, this is the generation that was in middle school during a global financial crisis that devastated their parents, that grew up with school shooting drills as a normal part of education, that watched the global pandemic erase an entire phase of their adolescence, that is inheriting a climate crisis that the people in power keep failing to address, that is entering an economy where the things their parents told them would lead to stability, education, hard work, doing the right things, increasingly don't deliver the same outcomes.
So the anxiety isn't irrational. That's the part that matters. It's not a generation that is fragile for no reason. It's a generation that looked at the world it was handed and had a completely rational response to genuinely alarming information.
The anxiety is accurate. It's calibrated to a reality that is actually uncertain.
which makes it both completely understandable and incredibly hard to treat, because you can't just do breathing exercises your way out of a broken housing market.
You can't meditate your way into job security.
And yet that's largely what they're being offered. Individual solutions to structural problems. Self-care as a response to systemic failure.
Okay, but I want to push back on something here, because I think there's a real question about whether some of this is about awareness rather than actual increase. Like, maybe previous generations were just as anxious and depressed, but they didn't have the language for it, didn't talk about it, didn't get diagnosed.
That's a legitimate point, and researchers take it seriously. And yes, some of the increase in diagnoses is absolutely about better awareness, reduced stigma, more people seeking help. Those are good things.
But the scale of the increase is too large to be explained by awareness alone. And crucially, the functional outcomes are getting worse, not better. More people in crisis, more people unable to work, unable to form relationships, unable to move through basic life tasks. That's not just a labeling change, that's a real deterioration.
And there's another piece that I think gets overlooked, the loneliness piece. Because I think growing up with social media as your primary social environment does something specific to the ability to form real connection.
Because online interaction, even at its best, doesn't deliver what in-person connection delivers. The nervous system regulates differently in a room with someone. Eye contact, physical presence, the texture of real time, those things do something that a screen genuinely cannot replicate. And if you spend your formative social years primarily online,
You might reach adulthood with hundreds of online connections and no real practice at the harder, slower, more vulnerable work of actual intimacy.
and then you feel alone in a way you can't explain because you have all these connections. You're always technically in contact with people, and yet something essential is missing.
The loneliness of being constantly connected and rarely actually seen.
I want to say something about the criticism Gen Z gets, because I think a lot of it comes from a fundamental misunderstanding.
The sensitivity criticism.
Yes, they can't handle anything. They need trigger warnings for everything. They're too fragile. And I think what's being called fragility is often actually something else.
What is it?
It's the result of growing up in a high stimulation, high comparison, high uncertainty environment with very little unstructured time, very little genuine privacy, and constant exposure to the full weight of global suffering through a device that fits in your pocket. If you process all of that, if you actually feel it instead of numbing out, you're going to look sensitive to someone who grew up without that particular kind of noise.
It's not fragility, it's overload.
And the people calling them fragile largely grew up in a world where the hardest things they faced at 15 didn't have a comment section.
Didn't have a like count, didn't get screenshotted and sent around the school before lunch.
Exactly. The social cruelty that has always existed among teenagers now has infinite reach and permanent record, and that changes the experience fundamentally.
Changes what it costs to grow up. So where does that leave us? Because I don't want this to just be here's why everything is terrible and there's nothing to be done.
I think the most honest thing we can say is if you're part of this generation and you're struggling, the struggle makes sense. It is not a personal failure. It is not weakness. It is a reasonable response to an environment that is genuinely hard in ways that are new and that the people around you may not fully recognize.
And naming that matters, because one of the most damaging things about anxiety is the shame that comes with it. The sense that something is wrong with you specifically, that other people are handling this fine and you're the only one falling apart.
Most of them are not handling it fine. They're just quieter about it, or better at performing okay, which we talked about a couple of episodes ago.
It keeps coming back to that.
It always does. And I think the other thing worth saying is connection is still the answer. Real connection, the kind that happens slowly, in person, without an audience, the kind that is uncomfortable and imperfect and doesn't have an edit button.
The kind that the algorithm can't give you and can't replace.
Find the people who make you feel less alone in the actual room.
If tonight felt personal, if some part of this landed somewhere specific inside you, you're not alone in that. Not even close. 3 a.m. Talks. We'll see you next time.